Welcome everyone to Fergo and the Freak. I'm your host, the Glorious League Freak, and today I am joined by the York City Knights media manager and somebody that I have known through the internet for, as you said before, about 18 years, Gavin Wilson. How are you, Gavin?
I'm very good, thanks, mate. Good to be on. How are you?
I'm pretty good so far, anyway.
Good.
Now, I wanted to talk to you about York's bid for a Super League club because I've watched from afar York slowly work their way towards building up as a rugby league club. I watched from afar with they're getting involved in the stadium and getting a share of use of the stadium that was in York. And now they've officially made that step of wanting to become a Super League club. You've been involved in the club for a number of years now. Do you think that the club is in a good position now to step up to Super League next year?
Yeah, definitely. I think everything is weird. It's kind of everything's all just falling into place perfectly, really. And if we get the nod tomorrow or today, I'm not sure the time difference. I think it's a really exciting time for rugby league in York. We've been slowly building since January 2017, since John Flatman, the current owner, took over. We've gone from strength to strength each year, and I think we're in a really good position at the minute. It's really exciting.
It does kind of feel like it's an organic move forward for the club, doesn't it? It doesn't feel like it's too early. It doesn't feel like it's too late. You know, they haven't had sort of hurdles that they've overcome and have knocked the club back too far. It just sort of seems like maybe it's the natural progression for the club at this point. And especially now, I always felt like getting that stadium sorted out, which I know you were a big part of, really fighting for that stadium and making sure that the club was involved in that. Having that stadium there to use for the whole region of York, the York City, it's a big carrot for the rugby, well, not the Rugby Football League, but Super League itself, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's a real jewel in the crown for us. It's something. It's a facility. It's a multi-million pound, 50 million state-of-the-art facility, and it's something that a city the size of York has been crying out for 2 or 3 decades now. So to see it all finally come to fruition, it's really great. And like I say, this opportunity that's come up with Super League, it just feels like perfect timing, really. And since John Flatman took over in January 2017, and alongside James Ford, and the whole way that we've developed year on year and gone from strength to strength, but it's kind of the way the club is run. It's always run within its means and sustainable, but it's very flexible in the fact that we can react to certain scenarios and situations, and we can develop. And so, I mean, if the worst happens tomorrow and we don't get the nod, then we're not going to be too despondent, because we've built up a fantastic, strong top-end Super League, top-end Championship team that I would expect would compete really well in the Championship next year, which would be a fantastic division in its own right. But if we get that nod to Super League, then we can very quickly transition the club between now and March the 11th into a full-time Super League club with a full-time squad, and the players are ready to go. The James Ford's ready to go. They've already had preliminary investigating talks with potential more full-time squad members to add with the added salary cap and investment. So, regardless of the outcome tomorrow, it's going to be a really exciting year in 2021 in that brand new stadium for York. And I'm very excited to be a part of it.
And you bring up a really good point. Like, this isn't make or break for this club either. Like, there are some of the clubs that are bidding for this where if they don't make it in, they might just give up the ghost completely. There's other clubs where if they don't get in, they're going to be like, well, what are we doing? Trying to push for this. York feels like it's such an organic situation that it's like, yeah, okay, we'll be one of the stronger championship clubs, and that's not the end of the journey, because like all good clubs at that level, there'll be the opportunity to build strength and, work on juniors and stuff like that, just bringing in more fans to the club with success in the championship, and looking forward to maybe the next opportunity as well. And that's one of the cool things I like about the York bid, is that it isn't that make or break situation. So that's really cool to see. it is a very quick turnaround if they announce whatever club gets in that has to be ready for basically, February, March next year. Do you think that that's something that is doable for any of the clubs, or do you think that it might be better if they pushed it out a little bit further, even an extra year, because it's such a quick turnaround to build up even the player strength, especially now with the player markets are all basically closed.
If we was in this situation 10 years ago, then I would maybe consider that. But the championship division in England has developed so much over the last 5 or 6 years. I think part of that was helped by the setup with the middle eights a few years ago. I know not everyone was a fan of it. I thought it was great fun. But the top end of the championship, certainly the clubs that are all there fighting now, like Toulouse and Lee and London and even Bradford, as much as it pains me to say it, but and York recently in the last couple of years, all these kind of clubs and the facilities that these clubs now have, they are Super League potential clubs, and I think it's the turnaround to develop the club from a top end championship into a club that would compete in Super League is a much smaller turnaround than it would have maybe have been a decade ago. I know York are only a full-time team at the minute, but with the facilities we've got, with the new stadium, with the training facilities we've got, with our fantastic partnership with York St John University, our facilities are world class, and a number of World Cup teams are using them in the Rugby League World Cup next year. So, I think we've got everything in place, and it's basically just a kind of James Ford is already full time. He's one of the best young British coaches in the game. We're very lucky to have him. He's our first full time coach, and he's gone from strength to strength. He's already got plans in place to get that squad full time. So if we get the nod tomorrow, I wouldn't be surprised if the entire squad was all full time by the end of the week. They've all signed their new contracts and they're all ready and raring to go. I'm not really privy to that kind of chat between John and Fordy. That's between them two. I'm just the guy that puts the tweets out and makes sure the club is presented in a positive, vibrant way online. But which is a lot of fun for me. But I think we're ready and we're raring, and I think all the other clubs would be too.
Surely you've got the ability though to guarantee a $5 million contract to Sonny Bill. Surely.
I wish. If he wants to come, we could maybe hook him up with a job at the chocolate factory as well.
There's a chocolate factory in York?
Oh, mate, we're famous for it. We used to have 3 back in the day. We had Nestle, we had Terry's. It was great. It's one of our industries is chocolate in York.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
See, I don't know much about York. The only thing I went through there in a train once, and now you've got a train museum, and that's it.
Yeah. Well, we were one of the pioneering cities in the rail, the steam train era, and the Industrial Revolution. York, it's got a long, rich history. Not just the Industrial Revolution, but all the way back. Like you've got like the Minster and the Romans and Jorviks and all that. We've got a real exciting history. And I think that's part of what makes our bid quite attractive is the fact that we're quite a destination city. We're one of the top cities in Europe that people want to visit, not just the UK but entire Europe. So we're a very attractive city, and I think would be a lot of rugby league fans would fancy coming to York and not just coming for the Sunday afternoon, but coming for the full weekend. Might come in across on a Friday night, enjoying Friday night and all day Saturday in the city, and then taking in a rugby game on the Sunday, or should we get into Super League, having the Friday night game and then enjoying the weekend in a beautiful city. So that's one of the exciting things about our bid is that we bring a bit of vibrancy and a bit of freshness to the competition, I think.
Yeah, and the other thing too is that it isn't a massive expansion in terms of geography, but it is definitely taken a step towards that direction. And the city of York, it's world famous. It's kind of strange that it isn't the biggest place in the world, but it literally is world famous. And it would be a great addition to Super League. And I think the other cool thing would be that if, like, you think down the road, can you imagine having a clash between York and New York? That would be awesome.
Yeah, how cool would that be in a
Yeah.
domestic league coming up against each other? Yeah, Old York and New York. The publicity really writes itself for that one. But yeah, it's like you touched upon there. Like that's kind of what our whole bid has been around. Like it's centered around the phrase heartland expansion. I know it would normally be a bit of an oxymoron there, but I think to us it makes perfect sense because we're not on that M62 corridor that the game is kind of seen to have been contracting into recently. And it's all a bit parochial. But no, we're out of that. We're about 40 miles from the nearest Super League club to us, and North Yorkshire as a county is one of the largest counties in the country.
And I mean there hasn't been that mid-step ever in Super League at all. Like, I mean, me and Andrew on the podcast have been talking about, like, why has nobody ever looked at expanding to Birmingham? Because it's not that far away from the heartlands. It's a step. It's a city. It's a big city. And it's like, it's weird that those mid-steps haven't been taken, where in Australia we went to Canberra, and then we went to Illawarra and Newcastle, and then we went to Brisbane, and we took those steps before making those really big expansion leaps. And there hasn't been that in Super League really at all. And so York is an opportunity to do that midway step and, you know, actually add something to the game while you're doing it, though, at the same time.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think if York were to get the nod, I think we would expand the footprint of the division into quite a big area in North Yorkshire without any kind of top level rivals in football or in rugby union or even in rugby league in North Yorkshire as a county. So it would be expansion, but it would be measured and it would be cautious, and we'll be slowly spreading the roots. And obviously with Newcastle getting the nod to go from League One to the Championship last week, which I think was the correct decision. It's brilliant. They're a great club, Newcastle. They've got great facilities. They've got great backing. Their junior systems that they're setting up there are brilliant. They're really bringing a culture of rugby league through now. And I would love to see Newcastle as well, even elevated into Super League down the line and continue that kind of. It's a much more organic kind of expansion. And I think if maybe 5 or 6 years down the line, we've got York and Newcastle in Super League, along with a second French team in Toulouse and London Broncos, then I think you're starting to get a picture of a properly national division then, rather than just one that's played across two counties across one motorway.
Yeah, exactly. Now, with York, I mean, there doesn't seem to be any natural rivals. Like, I would have thought that maybe Newcastle, but like, is there anybody that York sort of thinks, oh, those lot don't like them?
I think back in the day they used to have like quite a good few ding dong tussles with the two Hull teams and even Cats. There was quite a lot of player movement between York and Castleford towards like the late 80s, early 90s. But that's kind of, I mean, I was only born in 87, so my uncle was playing professionally at that time, so that's how I got into the game. So yeah, it's all a little bit before my time when York were really truly mixing it with the big boys, when they had the likes of Graham Steadman and Tuweri Nicow and stuff. But it'd be really exciting to bring them days back in modern new facilities. And I think we could, if we were to get the nod, I think we'd quite easily strike up a good friendly competitive rivalry with Hull FC, with Hull KR, with Castleford and with Leeds Rhinos as well. Nothing would please me better than to be beating Leeds Rhinos by 2 points on Sky Sports, a brand new stadium on the opening round in March. It'll be a great event.
Yeah, I would sign up for that. That'd be nice. With York, I mean, people probably don't realise it. I didn't realise it until I looked it up. York has a very, very long history with, I mean, the first club was a soccer club and a rugby union club at that time, and it was like the mid-1800s. And then the rugby union club switched to the Northern Union competition, and I think it was 1901 from memory. And that club went through for many years, and then it shut down not that long ago. But do the York City Knights consider themselves a different club from that previous club, or did they take on that history as well?
It's a bit of both. It's really quite an interesting one. I mean, in 2018, when we were in League One, fighting out with Bradford Bulls for the League One division, which was a great year. We had a great competition with Bradford Bulls that year. That was actually, we had 150 years above our crest, because that was 150 years since the original York team was founded. And obviously, it wasn't even rugby league or rugby union back then. It was just rugby. It was the only thing that was known then. And they played on the Knavesmire on the racetrack and borrowed a grandstand from a local cricket team and had portable posts. And so it is a long, rich history, and there's no reason why we should forget that or neglect that. I know obviously it went through a real tough time around the turn of the century, and it fell into the wrong hands, and it was mismanaged a little bit. But since the old club went under and York Wasps were sadly no more in 2002, 2003, the club came back as York City Knights, fully rebranded and with new people at the helm under new control. Steve Ferres, who was a very popular administrator at the time, and Roger Dixon was the chairman, and it was, they brought on Paul Broadbent and Lee Jackson and Chris Smith and Graham Hallis, players who had a bit of pedigree, and brought a vibrancy to the team back then in 2003. And the crowds, they came flocking back. We went from having like 150 people watching Rochdale put 90 on us as York Wasps to 2 years later having 3,500 people there watching us put 70 on Workington. So it's a funny thing how fast things can develop in sport. But when you've got a successful team, people are going to want to come and watch it and support it. And it feels different this time. It's with the Knights under John Flatman. It's much less boom and bust, and it's much more calculated and measured and steady growth, and trying to realise that potential, especially moving into the new stadium. It's really exciting. So we do like to remember our history and celebrate it of the previous club and the history of the sport in the city. But yeah, we like to move forward as a modern progressive club that's ready to rock.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting. Like, if they get the nod, it's going to be very, very exciting to have a team from just a completely new area as far as Super League is concerned. And all the marketing that comes from it just be so, it's a layup, York, and the York City Knights. Now, turning away from that discussion, we talked about this really briefly before we started the podcast. Talk that the NRL is looking at investing in Super League and getting basically a 51% share of Super League. Now, me and Andrew have talked about it on the podcast before, but we haven't actually talked to anybody from England about it. What are your thoughts on it? And do you think it's a good idea or a bad idea? Like, I tend to think it would be a really bad investment from the NRL's on the NRL's behalf. But what do you think?
Well, it's really interesting. I think, I'm very wary of things like private equity deals and things like that, and losing control, less control over of what your product is in return for short-term security, in return for less control over the long term. But if Super League are looking down this road of private equity, I would much rather that the percentage, the 51%, is in the hands of people that know the game, that want the game to grow and have the best interests of the game at heart. And I think that Super League, if it were to release that kind of amount of control over its own affairs, I think there wouldn't be anyone better really than the NRL. You've obviously seen that how well they've done commercially over the last decade or so, and with Peter V'landys at the minute really taking the game by the scruff of the neck and leading them through an unprecedented year, like one of the most turbulent years in global history, not just sport. So and he's done a fantastic job. And if he was to add some of that news to the UK Super League, then I certainly think that some exciting things could happen. Obviously, I'm very wary about it, and obviously there have to be a lot more meat put on the bones. I mean, it's only from an initial Sky News report last Wednesday or Thursday, I think, where this has come from. So, apart from that, I've no idea what the actual deal entails, or how much it entails, how much money is involved, or how much percentage of a stake is lost. So, but on the face of it, I wouldn't be just dismissing it out of hand straight away. If the NRL were looking to invest in the UK Super League, or maybe even create a global NRL brand, it's something I'd be, as a fan, I would be quite excited about.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see what they brought in, because I think that, I mean, some of the things I think they'd have to do, I think they'd have to lower the salary cap to, like they did in the NRL in the early 2000s, to bring costs under control and to be able to make a profit. Yeah, and not so much for the NRL side, but just for the game in general, to be able to get its finances back under control in the UK. And then from there, I mean, it would be really interesting to see if they decided to basically pick and choose some clubs to go forward with Super League and then add expansion clubs, or if they took the current Super League but put a timetable on expansion. But I'm like you, I really worry about these deals with giving up any control of a competition, because you never know what the result's going to be. I mean, if the NRL come in and said, look, we're going to kick every single team out of Super League and we're going to make brand new teams ourselves, like, they'd have the right to do that to a certain extent. So I'm like you, I'd worry about deals like that. I was surprised that it had become a lot more official this last week. There were rumours of it for a long while, but now that the NRL itself is actually going public saying, yeah, we're actually in talks, it's really interesting. And, like, I don't know if the thing that worries me about it all is we've seen Super League and Super League clubs, and even in lower grades, different levels of the competition. They'll move from control from the Rugby Football League, and then they'll start Super League as a different entity and all sorts of stuff. And I would, if I was the NRL, I'd kind of be worried that if they bought Super League and the clubs weren't happy with the decisions that were being made from that point on, that the clubs wouldn't just walk away from it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it'd be an interesting one. But I think if the NRL were to come in, then they would have the best interests of the game in UK Super League at heart, because it'd be in their interest to make the UK Super League as profitable as possible, because it would be a return on their investment. So I think, like a rising tide rises all boats, doesn't it? So it would be an interesting one. But like I say, I would have a lot more confidence. I mean, if the Super League do decide to go down this route of private equity, I would much rather it went to the NRL rather than some hedge fund in Hong Kong.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. What were your thoughts on what happened with the Toronto Wolfpack this year? I mean, they basically stepped up into Super League at probably the worst time they could have done it in 100 years. It was just every single thing that could have gone against them really did in the space of about 2 months. But I think the thing that really angered a lot of people was there was a lack of support, and there seemed to be a real willingness to kick them out rather than to try and keep them in. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, it was such a massive shame. I was a big advocate of Toronto Wolfpack from day one. I was very excited about what they could bring to the game, not just to the UK Super League, but across the world as well. I thought they had that transatlantic appeal, and to go from an idea on the back of a beer mat in 2015 or whenever it was, to then pulling in crowds of 10,000 in the second tier of UK Rugby League in a city on another continent was just absolutely phenomenal. And I think the game, not necessarily just Super League itself, but the game, like everyone involved needed to kind of cultivate that and do everything they could to kind of and expand on that and really help it like grow and make strong roots there. It's such a shame that everything happened the way it has. It was just such awful luck. obviously they were getting things wrong even before the pandemic, and that had to be acknowledged. But they were a brand new club, and they were going to make mistakes, and they were going to have slip ups here and there. I think they needed every chance, and I think with the right backroom staff in place to help support the ownership group that was there, and some different decisions. Obviously, hindsight's a great thing, but had they made different decisions at different points, then they might still have been around. But obviously, no one could have predicted a worldwide global pandemic that would shut down the entire world and travel and sport. And obviously, the Wolfpack didn't get the same kind of protection from the government in Canada that the sports teams over here had. Which, had it not been for the furlough scheme in the UK from the UK government, then I think probably 80 or 90% of all rugby league clubs would have gone under by May or June. So it's so unfortunate, and I hope they can come back at some point in another guise, maybe down the line. Who knows what happens? I mean, who knows what the NRL's interest might have? They might want to try and pick up that transatlantic interest again, but obviously it's lessons need to be learned, and but I think there's something there, isn't there? There's embers of a flickering flame of interest. I mean, you don't get 10,000 people coming to a sports event every other weekend in Toronto without just out of good luck. It's a shame, but I'm still hopeful. Maybe it's because I'm just a naturally positive guy, but I'm still hopeful that something can happen there.
Yeah, same here. It's I have a feeling if the NRL did come in, I think that would be one of the first things they talk about is bringing Toronto back. Because as you said, it's like I don't think anybody has seen what happened in Toronto and wasn't absolutely shocked at the support they got immediately. And it wasn't just, it wasn't like they were getting 3,000 or 4,000 people and you were like, oh, that's a bit surprising. Like getting 10,000 through the gates and having the Toronto media behind them, and for it to be such a giant media market, it would be the bigger media market than any of the ones we have in Australia. It would be really hard for the NRL to turn their back on that if they were going to buy into Super League. Looking towards the World Cup, now you were talking about how there are a couple of World Cup teams going to be based in York. What are your thoughts on the World Cup? Do you reckon that we're definitely going to have the World Cup? It's probably a lot more likely now that we've got the vaccine, the COVID-19 vaccine is starting to get rolled out. I think before that it was a bit up in the air, but I guess now it's a little bit more of a positive outlook that in a year from now we'll be playing international rugby league over there in the UK. I'm always naturally positive anyway. I've been thinking that all year. I was supposed to be getting married this year in July, but obviously that got cancelled, but we moved it to next July. Yeah. I've no doubt in my mind that I'll be getting married the first weekend in July next year with all my friends and family there, and all Alex's friends and family there. There'll be 160 people, and we'll be sinking some serious beer that year. But I mean, I've no doubts about it. The vaccine's been rolled out over here now. I mean, it started last week, and I think over 100,000 people have already been vaccinated. Oh, wow. So, I mean, I'm very positive. Hopefully, I'm high up on the list as well. Obviously, with a spinal injury as well, I'll be tapping up the hospital very soon to hopefully try and get in the front of the queue there. We'll talk about the World Cup first, then I'll ask you about the because I haven't talked to anyone from the UK about it for a while, so I'm interested to know what's going on,
Yeah, but no, I'm fully 100% confident that the World Cup's going to happen next year, and I'm really excited about it. 2013 was the last time that we had the World Cup over here, and it was an absolutely fantastic 5 weeks. We had great crowds, we had great games. One of the most heartbreaking yet incredible days of my life, that semi-final at Wembley Stadium with New Zealand, and Kev Sinfield shooting out the line in the last minute. Why, Kev? Why do you need to do that? I'm 100% confident that we're going to get some more unforgettable moments and memories like that next year, and not just in the men's game as well, but in the women's game and the wheelchair game too, and the physical disability tournament as well. So there's a lot of inclusiveness and a lot of exciting moments to look forward to next autumn.
Have you ever taken part in wheelchair rugby league?
I have not. No, murder ball, they like to call it, don't they? No, no. I'm much happier reporting on the game from the sidelines rather than doing that. But yeah, no, my spinal injury is just slightly too high up, so I don't actually have like use of my wrists or fingers are out. So I think I'd get taken out pretty quickly if the ball came to me. So yeah, no, but it's a fantastic sport and it's really exciting to watch and. Yeah, it's real physical as well when you watch it. Kind of when you're watching it in real life, when you're in that sports hall, it's quite shocking, like some of the impacts you see. So, but yeah, no, it's great fun.
Yeah, I feel like it would. Like I haven't ever attended a match, obviously, but I feel like it would be one of those things where when you're in attendance, it's like, oh shit, like these guys are really smashing each other out there. Like someone's going to get hurt.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's great fun to watch, and yeah, full credit to them. I'm sure they're going to put on a great show next autumn, and I'll be looking forward to getting to a few games.
Now with COVID itself, right? You live in York, yeah? Yeah. So like York is one of the places I haven't heard about in terms of COVID hitting places pretty hard. How's it been in York?
So York is been. I mean, I say it's an unfortunate turn of phrase, but we've been okay. We've been quite lucky with it, really. I mean, obviously there has been quite a lot of deaths in and around York, and that's really sad. I mean, it's sad to lose anyone, but compared to some of the rest of the country, we've managed to come out of it relatively intact. There was a pretty obviously around March, April time when it went up right across the country, it was pretty bad, but we all locked down pretty quickly and we were quite safe and sensible about it. And then we were all right through the summer. And then towards the end of September, it was when the two universities, all their students came back from the two universities at York, which is obviously quite a big influx. And the rate went pretty high throughout October. But then started dropping again throughout the beginning of November when it had burned through the university halls and whatnot, the virus. So yeah, we're pretty back pretty low again now is our rate. So hopefully we can be sensible over Christmas again and keep that rate as low as possible through January and February, and then. But obviously by that point, hopefully we'll be seeing the majority of the people that need it vaccinated.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how we see the rates fall with the vaccine now in place. I was reading where they said it basically, because you need the 2 shots obviously, but they consider you to be vaccinated after you've had a month after that first shot. You have to get a second shot, I think, after 21 days after the first one. But it's going to be interesting to see what the rates do after that time period. You must have been like was your lockdown more your personal lockdown? Were you more severe about it than most other people?
Yeah, because I'm actually considered as vulnerable, as a way, in inverted commas, because of my spinal injury. So yeah, we locked down. Me and my partner Alice. She went on furlough straight away, and then we locked down. Kind of. When was it? The national lockdown was the 23rd of March. We actually went down a week before, the 16th. So yeah, from the 16th of March to the 4th of July, it was just me and Alice in our house. We had weekly doorstep deliveries of our shopping and more Zoom quizzes than I can care to remember. And I'm still psychologically damaged from them Zoom quizzes. But yeah, it was tough, but we got through it really well. Me and Alice, yeah, we obviously had a lot of support from our friends and family, either through the windows or through the laptop screens. But yeah, we got on really well, and obviously we still want to marry each other, so we must have done all right. So yeah. I think after 2020, I think after a year like this, if you can survive a year like this, you can survive anything.
Yeah, exactly. It's funny, I didn't really need to go into lockdown too much. It was very different over here, the situation, but I kind of was able to, so I did it voluntarily. As soon as I let up, I just got regular influenza and was really sick. It wasn't COVID-19 because I got tested, but I got regular influenza and was sick for about 2 months. Fucking terrible.
Isn't it?
Yeah, it's just my luck. Excellent. Well, look, thanks for coming on and talking about York, because it's really a lot of the other Super League bids are getting a lot of media attention, and York is kind of just working away there in the background and has got a really good case. And I wanted to talk about it on the podcast and talk to somebody that knew what they were talking about, and who better than to ask you, because I know you've been involved in it for a very long time now, and it's been really cool to see, from seeing you support it from very early days to, seeing where the club is now and seeing that you're the media manager and the stadium's there. It's a really cool story to see it from afar for somebody that, as you said, we've kind of from a distance known each other for about 18 years, but, it would be so cool for you if they got into Super League. So I wish you all the best.
Yeah, thanks a lot, mate. Well, I mean, it's my dream job. I really am living the dream, because I'm a York lad. I'm a rugby league lad. So to be doing the media, managing and promoting the club that I love as a fan it really is the dream. So, I mean, even if I didn't do this job, I would still be on the terraces every week. So, it's great, and it's an honour and a privilege to do this job. So, hopefully I can keep on doing it to the best of my abilities and really showing the club in a positive light as possible. And if that's in the Championship next year, great. If it's in the Super League, even better.
Nice. Where can people find you?
We're at YorkCityKnights.com. We're at Facebook.com/York City Knights and Twitter.com /York Knights RLFC.
And what about I don't know if you want to give out your personal Twitter account?
Twitter.com/Gav Wilson. That's me.
There we go. Yeah, and I would say to everyone, give him a follow, because I've been following him for years and years and years, and he's a really good follow. He talks about rugby league a lot, and he's one of the few people in England that I think is kind of on the same sort of wavelength as I am. He's way more foul-mouthed than me, that's for certain. All right, Gav, thanks for that, and thanks to everyone for listening. We'll see you again soon.